Hey, it's Dr. J, and this is Mindset Resilience. And today I wanted to talk a little bit about this new patient that I had the other day. With every new patient that comes in, I'm always asking people, have you seen another naturopathic doctor before? And it's not so much in terms of like treatments. It's not about, what they did or didn't do with that other doctor, or that doctor had the cure or the right answer for them at that time. The reason I asked that question is because I really want to know what it was about that doctor that really worked for that working relationship. What made it easier to work with that person? What made it more difficult? In this particular case, the patient left to come and see me, a different option as a naturopathic doctor, because that previous doctor didn't provide enough clear direction. There wasn't adequate communication, at least from the perspective of that patient. Maybe most importantly, there was zero follow-up. That was the thing that the patient really clarified for me, was that the doctor was unable to establish any level of accountability for the patient. And so the patient had some information, had a treatment plan, had a protocol in place, but they never actually executed it. And so they kind of lost faith in it, lost touch with that doctor, and then ended up in my office the other day. And that's sort of a preface for what I wanted to talk about today, and that's coaching in medicine, which might seem like a little bit of a stretch, but bear with me on that. And I guess, a big part of how I started thinking about this video or this post was that, I've just been thinking a lot about how far I've come in my 15 years of practice, and I thought I'd share a little bit about that. And when I was young and as a younger adult as well, I definitely identified as an athlete and as a coach. And I think I was seen as that as well, or at least that was my impression. So when I say that I was an athlete, the emphasis is very much on the was, just to be very clear about that. And it does feel like a lifetime ago, But I think, as a lot of other athletes will agree, if you're an athlete right now, or if you have an athletic background, I think you'll probably feel the same way. But my sporting career, my athletic career, was a period of my life that really shaped who I would become, and how I learned to interact with people. And I don't think I really realized that only until maybe the last 2 or 3 years, really. But self-improvement, self-regulation, self-confidence, these are just some of the benefits of competitive sport, in my opinion. Some people will disagree and may feel like competition and sport may not be the most appropriate thing for our kids to experience growing up. Most of you guys know that I have 2 young kids, and that's something that's important to me, is competition and sport and everything that comes along with that as well. But I think, as a competitive athlete, something else you really start to figure out at some point over time in your athletic career is what really makes a good coach. And that's kind of where I'm getting at today. Sometimes as an athlete, you do need to end up coaching yourself. And with more experience in a particular area or a sport, let's say, I think that you begin to be able to observe yourself and evaluate yourself more effectively, and begin to take corrective action or find solutions for difficult problems or situations, and maybe more importantly, thrive through challenges and rough times that you're going to have. Whether that's in sport, or I think, as we are going to be applying coaching to performance and productivity and health and wellness and medicine, I think that really crosses industries. It crosses different lenses through which we see the world. Maybe more easily for people to identify with, though, is, even if you are not the most athletic person or don't have a huge sporting experience, I think is that we all have some idea or an understanding, or at least an opinion, about what kinds of people and what the kinds of qualities are that would make a good coach. And some of us in turn become coaches over time. I mean, I played competitive soccer for, I think it was 13 years as a kid, and we traveled all over the world to compete. I played varsity volleyball for the University of Waterloo, and later became a varsity volleyball coach for a women's team for about 3 years in my undergrad experience. So, the lessons that I learned as an athlete and later as a coach, I don't think I ever really intended for them to be springboards into my career. I mean, I think at that time I probably thought like coaching is a career unto itself. I could be a volleyball coach. I could coach at a university. That might have been the opportunity. I don't think I ever really thought that that's where I would end up. But I guess I coached for the love of the game. I coached to stay involved in the sport when my playing days were over, and for the community that came with the sports that I grew up with. But learning how to coach people has become, in my humble opinion, my greatest strength as a doctor today. And that's what this episode and this entry is all about for Mindset Resilience today. I think being a coach and having that experience has also made me really critical when I observe how healthcare is typically delivered today. I think too often these days, no matter what kind of healthcare professional you're seeing, whether that's your family doctor, a naturopathic doctor, or any other, a health coach, nutritionist, whatever it might be, treatment's often focused on the disease or the dysfunction. We treat the problem. In conventional medicine, in our public healthcare system, for better and for worse, the framework is entirely based on diagnosis. You can't treat until you have a diagnosis in conventional medicine. That's the schema, that's the framework. And there are huge advantages as well as disadvantages to that. But that's an entirely different video, I think. But in 15 years of practice as a naturopathic doctor, what I think I've realized is that the key to being a great doctor isn't always, and certainly isn't only about prescribing the right drug or diet or supplement or herb or exercise. What it is it's about always putting your patient in the best position to succeed. And if that sounds a lot like a coaching approach in sport, that's exactly my point. The word empowerment gets tossed around a lot, especially as in the realm of naturopathic doctors. It's absolutely the most overused word in the naturopathic lexicon that we have. We empower people to take responsibility for their own health. Go and Google any naturopathic doctor. I'll bet you $100 that it's there. It's in their profile, it's on their website, it's in their biography, it's in their elevator pitch. And guess how much training we get in naturopathic medical school, in conventional medical schools, in any of the healthcare professions. Guess how much training we get on empowerment? Zero. We spend 0 hours in medical school teaching people how to teach others how to make decisions for themselves, how to consider the context of a person's life, how to work with them together as a team to decide what the best next steps are right now in the context of your life right now as it is. That's the art and the magic, I would argue, in medicine. Being a great doctor is, I think, my belief is that being a great doctor is about helping people take the next best step in their journey. It's about being a guide. It's about being a support, a mentor. It's about being a good or a great coach. And so when I realized that the coaching approach was a sorely missing framework or perspective or just behavior in medicine in general, and even surprisingly in integrative holistic circles like naturopathic doctors, I thought that this is a hugely missing piece, is coaching in medicine. I knew what I wanted to do, and I kind of always told myself after I finished med school I would never ever go back to school, but I broke that rule and I went back to school to become a better coach. That's when I completed my certificate in organizational coaching through the University of British Columbia, and that was in 2018, 2019. That experience gave me more tools to leverage in my practice, and it really allowed me the time to figure out how to integrate coaching into a clinical practice, especially where I work a lot with very successful and powerful business leaders. I work with entrepreneurs, artists, and actors, for instance, people who are very driven and motivated, want to get the most out of their brains and their bodies. And so there has to be, I feel like my sense is that there needs to be a sense of prose, like it has to be refined. And so I needed that time to really figure out, okay, I understand that coaching is really important to me, that that's a big piece of what's missing in medicine, and that's something that I want to provide to my patients. That's part of what I want to become a big part of my character. It's what I want people to think of when they think of me, is not just as a naturopathic doctor and an integrative practitioner, but as a coach. That's important to me today. And so it took me some time to figure out how I was going to deliver that and to get comfortable just using more of a coaching framework in my practice. Now, the word doctor comes from the Latin word docere. Docere does not mean to heal or cure or walk on water and perform miracles. Docere is the Latin verb that means to teach. In ancient Roman times, gladiators would call their instructor, I guess, or their coach, doctore, and those are the roots of the word doctor. Doctors are supposed to be teachers, coaches, facilitators, guides, educators. Doctors are not healers. Patients do the healing. Doctors don't do the healing, and that's something that I feel has been lost over time, even in naturopathic circles, if I'm being completely honest. So what is coaching? Coaching has a lot of definitions, and all of those definitions can be adapted, depending on the context. But I think, for me, this is how I think about coaching. Number one, so 4 points. Number one, coaching is about creating and building awareness. In the case of healthcare and medicine, it's about awareness and understanding of how our body and brain are working and why we are experiencing certain symptoms or have certain challenges in terms of our health. Number two, coaching is about providing the freedom to explore. And by exploring, I mean like exploring choices and options, opportunities, the opportunity to have some level of creativity or agility in the treatment plan or the progress or the process that we're going to go through. I think when I first thought about becoming a doctor, becoming a naturopathic doctor especially, the thing on my mind the most at that time was the virtuous idea that, it's about informed consent and it's about freedom of choice. Those were the two big things that I wanted to make sure that I was providing as a naturopathic doctor. Informed consent meaning recognizing that there is more than one option to treating a particular condition. In almost every single case, there are always alternatives, and it's about weighing the pros and the cons and your ability to execute on that treatment plan that makes a plan better or worse for you. There's never a one-size-fits-all solution for any one disease, diagnosis, or symptom. It's all a matter of understanding what the perfect storm is for that patient and how we can intervene at the process level, at an upstream level, as I like to say. So providing the freedom to explore choices and opportunities is the second thing in coaching. The next piece is the ability and the necessity to drive positive change or improvement. So it's constant daily improvement is how I think about it. We're always building on the last thing. So we make one commitment to something in terms of our health that helps us feel a little bit better, and that becomes a positive snowball. It's an upward spiral where you do one thing that makes you feel a little bit better, and that improves your mood, and you interact with someone else in a better way, and that creates a better social environment for you. That allows you to, it makes it easier for you to eat a little bit more healthy, or to remember to take your medicines or pills or whatever it is. I think that obviously that's going to be different for everybody, but driving positive change and improvement also respects that there is a compounded effect, both positively when we're doing things in a positive manner, when we're moving in a positive direction, but also in a negative way as well. And so, you never want to compound a mistake by making another 3, right, is the big key, and it works both ways. And then the fourth thing in terms of coaching, especially as I see it in medicine, but I think this applies to across all sports as well. It's how I approach things when I was coaching as an athlete or as a coach in athletics and in sport. And that fourth thing that is very important to me is being able to nurture self-efficacy, or self-confidence is the more common term, but self-efficacy is self-confidence within a specific realm. So in In sports, we actually call it sport confidence, which is self-efficacy in the specific realm of your specific sport. But self-confidence, self-efficacy, and just resilience too, understanding, and that's a big platform and sort of like hashtag for me is resilience. My main platform in my practice is called Resilience Labs. But resilience is related to self-efficacy. If you have a sense of control and agency, that you can control the situation, that you have some control over your symptoms or your health, then that's going to create a sense of an increased sense of resilience. You're going to be more resilient to the challenges and the problems that you come across. So those are the four things that I think about in terms of defining coaching. Now, if we take that to the next level, coaching in medicine specifically, when I'm working with my clients, what all of this means to me, and this is just how I practice. I'm not saying everybody should do this, or that every doctor has to practice the same way. I certainly don't mean that. But what's important to me as a naturopathic doctor and how I bring coaching to my practice is that number one, I try to find ways to explain to you what's going on with your body in a way that resonates well with you. I want you to understand the processes that are creating that perfect storm that I've mentioned before that has produced your current challenges. So what I do is I ask a lot of questions about what you do for work and what that entails. I joke around that I understand all of the functional requirements of everyone's jobs out there. And as I'm saying that, I find that amusing because before I started my practice as a naturopathic doctor, I worked in short-term disability claims and medical management for an insurance company. And a big part of that was understanding and matching what your functional requirements of your job was to what you are currently able to do. That's how we define disability is in the workplace is what's your job? How can it be adapted to you if possible? And what is the bare minimum that you need to be able to do physically, mentally, emotionally, in order to execute your job at the base level. And if you can't do those things, if you functionally cannot do those things, and can prove that you objectively cannot do those things, then you're disabled. So that's how we define disability in medicine and in insurance, I guess. When I ask a lot of questions, I want to understand what it is that you do for work because it helps me figure out how your brain works. And understanding how your brain works is, to me, just as important as understanding how your body works, because now I can motivate you or create accountability in a more effective way for you. I can explain things in a way that's more conducive to your understanding. If you are an engineer, stereotypically, you probably want to understand how things work a little bit more. I'll explain more details. I'll bring out flowcharts and biochemical pathways and stuff like that to explain hormones, for instance. Whereas if you are, a clinical counselor, perhaps, I'm probably going to be a lot more likely to start with helping identify what those emotions are and helping to make sure that I understand what the feelings are that you're going through and how that's affecting you at that level. Very different approaches to explaining or or sharing with people how their body and brain are working. Sometimes I'll even bring questionnaires and personality tests into the picture as well. These kinds of things help me give you better and more specific examples that are going to resonate better with your brain, so you understand the process more clearly. And I think when you understand the process, when you understand how your body works or why it's malfunctioning, I feel like that gives you an improved sense of control. That feeling that you have an ability to impact positive change. That's empowerment. And that's what we're not taught enough of. And I think what's missing in medicine in general. Coaching is also about understanding your context and asking the questions to understand your context. Like, what's going on in your life right now? What are you willing and able to do or to change right now? For whatever reason, whatever extenuating circumstances, are there certain things that might seem like low-hanging fruits that are easy to execute, but in your particular case, there is something else that's holding that back? Okay, well, if that's not an option, I need to stop sitting here and telling you, exercise, if you've got a busted up shoulder, right? Understanding what's going on for you right now is a really important piece. How can we keep you motivated and accountable for that plan that we're going to create together as a group, as a team. What are the obstacles and challenges that are most likely for you to come across? What's coming down the line in terms of just your schedule? It could be as simple as like, if we are talking about a diet and in terms of changes in our diet and what we're eating and the nutrition that we're doing, that's a big part of a naturopathic doctor's job. So I'm going to talk a lot about food and nutrition with you and make some suggestions as to how we might be able to tweak that diet as soon as possible right away. But if we're talking about eliminating certain types of foods for a short period of time, and I didn't ask or realize that it's your birthday next week and you're probably going to want to go out drinking and celebrating and your parents are probably going to bring over a cake, then maybe right now is not the best time to do that elimination diet, just as an example. And we can talk about any other treatment plan. It doesn't have to be a dietary one, but understanding what's going on in your life and what's coming down the line, and thinking proactively into the future to ensure the best opportunity for success. That's a big part of understanding context. A fine balance, and I think an art in medicine as a coach-oriented doctor, is knowing when to allow your patient to struggle through a challenge. It's very similar to parenting, right? Again, if you've got young kids, you'll understand this. If you're a parent at all, you'll understand this. There's a time to pick up your kid and to stop them from falling off the curb. And there's a time to let them fall in a safe way, and to figure things out for themselves, right? It's the same thing as a healthcare practitioner. There are times to intervene and to give you an answer and to be more prescriptive in nature. I think I'm always looking to see, how I can give you just enough of the tools and resources so that you've got the confidence that you can go and figure things out for yourself. Again, that's coming back to empowerment, like what empowerment actually means. The benefit of that is the growth of your sense of agency, your self-efficacy or self-confidence in the realm of your own health. Certainly, like I have protocols that we start with, or treatment plans that start off as templates, but and they have rules, but they're always customized and personalized to make it challenging enough for that person that builds on a previous experience, if there is any. And at the same time, it's also got to be attainable, right? It's got to, when we talk about setting good, healthy goals, they've got to be attainable. They've got to be realistic. But sometimes being a doctor is just absolutely not about telling people what to do. Being a doctor is not about prescribing a solution, or even giving people some suggestions to that matter. Sometimes being a great doctor is just about listening. And that's really hard for someone like myself who talks a lot. And that's a self-admitted, I don't know if it's a weakness, but let's say quality about me is that, I do like to talk and explain things. And that's why maybe, I'm getting on camera and doing these kinds of things now. But being a sounding board for my patients also offers them the opportunity to verbalize their own thoughts, their concerns, their problems, and to have those thoughts and emotions reflected back and validated. As someone who was trained through medical school before going into coaching training, it was a really hard shift recognizing a couple things. Number one, as a true coach, you don't always have to be the expert, right? And as a doctor, I can't say that I've experienced every healthcare condition that's out there. I can't say that I've experienced, kidney stones at this point. I've experienced, my share of injuries and stuff like that. I've gone through a couple of healthcare issues and I have some healthcare issues just like anybody else. But I haven't, and certainly, let's talk about women's health. I can't tell you exactly what it's like to go through the experience of having endometriosis. But what I can do is be an active and thoughtful listener. Having thoughts and emotions reflected back and validated is what is often verbalized from patients who come to naturopathic doctors is what they are missing in the public and conventional healthcare system is that, I don't feel like I've ever been listened to. There's never been the time for me to tell my full story. That is a common sentiment that I hear from a lot of my patients. And I would guess and put money on the fact that other naturopathic doctors, almost all naturopathic doctors, would likely say that that is something more common to our practices, primarily because we are a private practice and fee for service. And again, that's a whole nother ball of wax to get into another time. But I guess that, what I'm trying to say is, I guess that providing that space to just listen and be a sounding board was a difficult skill for me to learn to use appropriately, because my initial instinct is, if there's silence, it's to fill it. And I think for a lot of doctors who are expected to be experts, that is a common instinct. And so it's taken me 3 years to train that stuff out of myself at that point. And it's one of the greatest lessons I ever learned from that coaching experience and going through that extra education. I actually had a coach mentor through that program who is also a retired doctor, and she gave me a really big piece of advice that I still hear echoing in my head, almost every day, and that is, especially when I'm in a coaching mode, every time or anytime you want to give advice or prescribe or tell someone what to do, ask a question. Because what that means is, if I'm asking a question, I have to shut my mouth and I have to listen to the answer. And that's how we create that space. So that's how I think about providing that space for my clients and for my patients. So being an active listener and a fantastic listener is as important as the treatment recommendations and explaining to people what's going on with their brains and bodies, in my opinion. So all of that being said, these are just, my thoughts and my ramblings as far as coaching in medicine, and why I think, my experience as an athlete and then a coach, while I never thought that those things were directly related, I think that, it's become a very important part of me as a person, and I guess always was, but that is what I have brought to being a doctor and what I think being a doctor is all about, I guess. So I guess the question for a lot of people out there, if you're still listening to this at this point, it's, what am I, 26 minutes in, 27 minutes in, do you want a doctor to tell you what to do, and who is likely to only provide one solution to a problem? Honestly, some people work best and very well with those kinds of doctors. Prescriptive doctors have a massive role to play, and there are some people who work best when prescribed a specific thing. Just do this. I don't want to think about it. Just tell me what to do. But that's not, to me, that's not empowering. That doesn't create self-efficacy. It doesn't create a sense of control or agency in our lives around our health. So for me, that's not the way that I want to practice. That's not the kind of doctor that I would want to go to, but each of us is motivated and will get optimal results from different types of people. So that's there. But if you, like me, believe that a doctor should help to facilitate personal growth within this realm of health and medicine, if you believe that a doctor is supposed to be all about gaining a better understanding for how your brain and body work, and that a doctor is more like a coach than it is a computer program that could spit out a protocol for a particular disease, then you think more like I do than the prescriptive doctor. A coach is a guide, it's a support. A coach is a resource, and a coach is a cheerleader, whose job it is to help you explore the choices that you have available to you, and help you make the best decisions to create positive, sustainable change. And I guess when I was younger, I never thought that sports and coaching would be the biggest reason why I wanted to be a doctor. And today, though, I think I realized that athletics and coaching are the very reason why I became a doctor at all, and why I continue to love and want to continue doing what I do. So that's coaching in medicine, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments, and hope you guys are having a fantastic day. That's it for today. This is Dr.J, and this is Mindset Resilience.